There's something about visiting cemeteries that I've always really enjoyed. Perhaps it's because they're so peaceful and relaxing and just kind of force you to slow down and give you an opportunity to reflect and really think about life. And today I'm actually at one of the more unique national cemeteries to do just that. And more importantly, I'm here to pay my respects to some of America's greatest war heroes. I'm currently visiting Riverside National Cemetery in Riverside, California. It was first established in 1976, and today it is the largest and busiest cemetery that is managed by the National Cemetery Association. The land on which the cemetery is established was transferred by nearby March Air Force Base, which was a camp known as Camp William G. Hahn during World War II. Now, Riverside National Cemetery was first dedicated and opened for burials on November 11th, 1978, which was exactly 60 years after Armistice Day, marking the end of World War I on November 11th, 1918. Veterans from World War I all the way up to modern times are laid to rest here, making it a beautiful place to come pay your respects. It's also one of only 4 sites that have been recognized as a National Medal of Honor Memorial Site, and there are also 5 Medal of Honor recipients laid to rest here. We're now at the gravesite of Commander John Henry Balch, who served in the First World War. And he is one of 5 Medal of Honor recipients who is buried here at Riverside National Cemetery. Now, Commander Balch served in the United States Navy, 6th Regiment, U.S. Marines, and he earned his Medal of Honor for actions in France on July 19, 1918, and also at Somme in France on October 5, 1918. He died in 1980 and is laid to rest here, again as one of 5 Medal of Honor recipients. Nearby is the grave of another Medal of Honor recipient, Colonel Lewis L. Millett. Now, Colonel Millett has a pretty fascinating military career. He originally enlisted in the U.S. National Guard while still in high school, and in 1940 joined the U.S. Army Air Corps. I guess he ultimately thought the United States wasn't going to enter the war, so he decided to desert and headed up to Canada with a friend where they joined the Canadian Army, and they were ultimately sent overseas to London. He did serve briefly with Canadian forces, but was eventually transferred back to the United States Army after the U.S. entered the war. And while serving in World War II, he received a Silver Star for driving a burning ammunition truck away from a group of fellow soldiers before it exploded. He went on to serve in the Korean War, which is when he was awarded the Medal of Honor for successfully leading a major bayonet charge against the enemy. He continued his service in the Army and served during the Vietnam War as well, and didn't retire until 1973. All right, now I'm at the National Prisoner of War Missing in Action Memorial. And this is quite the moving statue. Wow. The sign over here says that we honor here the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of Americans held prisoner of war and those still listed as missing in action since the time of the American Revolution. Some died from disease and starvation, some perished in death marches, some were tortured, and some were lost, gone forever from their families. All were deprived of their liberties so that you may enjoy yours. And this monument was declared as the National Prisoner of War Missing in Action Memorial by President George W. Bush on December 10, 2004. this is the final resting place of Motor Machinist Mate First Class Patrick Henry McMahon. He served on PT-109 with Lieutenant Junior Grade John F. Kennedy during World War II. And it was on the night of August 2nd, 1943, that PT-109 was rammed and split in half by a Japanese destroyer known as the Amagiri. While many of the men survived, others did die. Now, McMahon was actually the only person in the engine room at the time of the collision and ended up being the most severely injured, with burns on nearly 70% of his body. Kennedy took the life jacket strap of McMahon into his teeth, and thankfully Kennedy was a strong swimmer. He was on the Harvard University swim team, and he pulled McMahon over 5 hours across 3.5 miles of ocean to a small deserted island known as Plum Pudding Island and saved McMahon's life. And these men went through an incredible, harrowing event, and Kennedy has rightfully been lauded for the actions he carried out that day. But it was men such as Patrick McMahon, who served in the United States Navy and fought through some amazing battles, and in this case, nighttime engagements against Japanese forces. And thankfully, McMahon survived and was able to go on and continue with his life. And he didn't pass away until February 18th, 1990. I mentioned that this is one of only 4 recognized National Medal of Honor memorial sites. And here we are at the Medal of Honor Memorial, which is absolutely beautiful. And it lists the name of every single American who has received the Medal of Honor. One thing I really like about this cemetery is that for the 5 Medal of Honor recipients, they have these placards, one for each, in vicinity of their burial location. And this gives the Medal of Honor citation and a little bit more information about the person. And this is the one for Walter D. Ehlers, who's a staff sergeant in the 18th Infantry, 1st Infantry Division, and he served during World War II. And his citation was received for actions that he carried out near Gauville, France, from June 9th to 10th, 1944. Nearby is a second one because there is another Medal of Honor recipient, the 4th of 5, buried nearby as well. And this is for Mitchell Paige. So we're going to go visit these 2 gentlemen and a few others and continue on. Here we are at the gravesite of Mitchell Paige, who was a Medal of Honor recipient for action that he carried out as part of the United States Marine Corps during World War II. And his citation reads, "At the Solomon Islands, October 26, 1942, for extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in action above and beyond the call of duty, while serving with the company of Marines in combat against enemy Japanese forces in the Solomon Islands on 26 October 1942. When the enemy broke through the line directly in front of his position, Sergeant Paige, commanding a machine gun section with fearless determination, continued to direct the fire of his gunners until all his men were either killed or wounded. Alone, against the deadly hail of Japanese shells, he fought with his gun, and when it was destroyed, he took over another, moving from gun to gun, never ceasing his withering fire against the advancing hordes, until reinforcements finally arrived. Then, forming a new line, he dauntlessly and aggressively led a bayonet charge, driving the enemy back and preventing a breakthrough in our lines. His great personal valor and unyielding devotion to duty were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service." And very close by to Paige is another Medal of Honor recipient, Walter D. Ehlers, who served in the United States Army during World War II. His citation reads, near Gauville, France, June 9th through 10th, 1944. Staff Sergeant Ehlers, always acting as the spearhead of the attack, repeatedly led his men against heavily defended enemy strongpoints, exposing himself to deadly hostile fire whenever the situation required heroic and courageous leadership. Without waiting for an order, Staff Sergeant Ehlers, far ahead of his men, led his squad against a strongly defended enemy strongpoint, personally killing 4 of an enemy patrol who attacked him en route. Then, crawling forward under withering machine gun fire, he pounced upon the gun crew and put it out of action. Turning his attention to 2 mortars protected by the crossfire of 2 machine guns, Staff Sergeant Ehlers led his men through the hail of bullets to kill or put to flight the enemy of the mortar section, killing 3 men himself. After mopping up the mortar positions, he again advanced on a machine gun, his progress effectively covered by his squad. When he was almost on top of the gun, he leaped to his feet, and although greatly outnumbered, he knocked out the position single-handedly. The next day, having advanced deep into enemy territory, the platoon of which Staff Sergeant Ehlers was a member, finding itself in an untenable position as the enemy brought increased mortar, machine gun, and small arms fire to bear on it, was ordered to withdraw. Staff Sergeant Ehlers, after his squad had covered the withdrawal of the remainder of the platoon, stood up and by continuous fire at the semicircle of enemy emplacements, diverted the bulk of the heavy hostile fire on himself, thus permitting the members of his own squad to withdraw. At this point, though wounded himself, he carried his wounded automatic rifleman to safety and then returned fearlessly over the shell-swept field to retrieve the automatic rifle, which he was unable to carry previously. After having his wound treated, he refused to be evacuated and returned to lead his squad. And not far from those 2 men is the final resting place of a woman named Lillian Kinkela Keil. Now, she was one incredible woman. She's actually one of the most decorated women in American military history. She has been awarded 19 medals, including a European Theater Medal with 4 battle stars, a Korean Service Medal with 7 battle stars, 4 air medals, and a presidential citation from the Republic of Korea. During World War II, she flew on 425 medical evacuation missions and took part in 11 major campaigns that included the D-Day invasion and Battle of the Bulge in World War II and the Battle of Chosin Reservoir during the Korean War. And I'd never heard of her before, which, I guess is on me. I want to continue to study and learn more about those who have served our country, particularly the women. For most of human history, it was only men who were serving on the front lines and in combat roles. And even during World War II, for Lillian to be in a position as a flight nurse pioneer to serve in these combat roles, essentially, participating in all these major campaigns and receiving all these medals for these amazing things that she's done. Women such as Lillian Keil need to be known. They need to be remembered. And we need to continue to hear about their stories, learn about them, and share them to future generations so we don't forget people such as Lillian Keil. Here at Riverside National Cemetery, there are 10 of the Tuskegee Airmen buried. And as much as I would love to visit all 10 grave sites, I'm unfortunately not going to have the time today, but I did want to stop at the final resting place of Thurston L. Gaines Jr. Thurston Gaines was an amazing man. When the Army Air Corps opened Tuskegee Institute to train black pilots, Gaines took the exam, and only a few months later he began his training. On August 4th, 1944, Gaines graduated and was immediately deployed to the European theater, flying both P-47 Thunderbolts and P-51 Mustangs. On his 26th mission, on April 15, 1945, while flying a P-51 in the 99th Fighter Squadron, 332nd Fighter Group, Gaines went missing about 40 miles from Muhldorf, Germany. His aircraft had been hit by enemy anti-aircraft artillery fire. Unfortunately for Gaines, although he was able to jettison safely, his plane crashed in German territory. He was immediately captured and held as a prisoner of war in Stalag Luft 7 in Moosburg, Germany, along with 25,000 other Allied POWs. He was later freed by Patton's 14th Armored Division. And Gaines went on and returned after the war to Tuskegee Institute as a pilot trainer in the B-25 bomber. And he attended medical college, got his medical degree, and just had a ton of accomplishments throughout his life. I'm going to finish up my time here at Riverside National Cemetery visiting the grave of Joe Morris Sr. Morris was a native of Arizona. and he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in 1943. Corporal Morris served as a Navajo Code Talker in the Pacific Theater during World War II and served throughout the war into 1946. And if you haven't learned anything about the Navajo Code Talkers, definitely worth looking up. They took part in every assault that the United States Marine Corps conducted in the Pacific from 1942 until 1945. They served in all 6 Marine divisions, Marine Raider battalions, and Marine parachute units, and they transmitted messages by telephone and radio in their native language, a code that the Japanese never broke. Men such as Joe Morris just fascinate me. The role that he played during the Second World War was so crucial, yet so many did not know about it for so many years. It wasn't declassified until 1968, so over 20 years after the war, before the American citizens really even understood what the Navajo Code Talkers were and what these men did. But it's men such as Joe that we can thank for their earnest and hard work during the Second World War that helped us defeat the Japanese in the Pacific and end the war. I could literally spend probably days, if not weeks, exploring Riverside National Cemetery and visiting all the different grave sites of these veterans and learning their stories and trying to tell their story. It is an amazing place. And today I didn't even visit half of who I wanted to visit and pay my respects to. I think it's important for us to go out and visit cemeteries and take the time to read the names on the headstones and learn the stories of the men and women who have come before us, particularly those veterans who served in the United States Armed Forces. It makes you just wonder, who is going to visit your grave one day? Will anybody care? Will somebody take the time to walk by your headstone and read your name and maybe learn a little bit more about who you were in your life? I don't know. I don't even feel like my visit today has done these veterans justice, but hopefully I was able to bring some of these stories to life to you all. And I definitely learned a lot about some amazing men and women who have served this country. And I plan to continue to visit cemeteries to learn about these men and women, to read about their stories, and hopefully to continue to share it to you all. But that's going to be it for this one. Now it's on to the next journey.